The Young and the Restless spoilers. Monday, full February 17, 2025. Tangled alliances and shattered hearts in the shifting sands of Genoa City, where love and betrayal danced a perilous waltz. Summer's relentless pursuit of a love that defied convention had begun to stir controversy like never before. While she had always been a fighter, willing to go to any lengths to secure the man she desired, her latest machinations against the steadfast union of Claire and Kyle had ignited a firestorm of opposition. Yet, amid the clamor of critics, a surprising few found themselves drawn to her audacious quest, admiring her unwavering determination to forge her own path, no matter the cost. For as long as Summer could remember, love had been her battlefield. When destiny smiled upon her and granted her a fleeting taste of victory, she cloaked her triumph in indifference, a cool, detached facade that belied the passion that simmered beneath. But when that victory slipped through her fingers, she would burn with an almost desperate longing to reclaim what she had once possessed. It was this volatile mix of arrogance and vulnerability that both enchanted and infuriated those around her. Among Summer's most fervent supporters was none other than Victor Newman. The calculating patriarch had long nurtured an interest in every twist and turn of the Newman legacy, and his support for Summer was as much a strategic move as it was a paternal indulgence. With a sly smile and a glint in his eye, Victor publicly cheered for Summer, bolstering her every attempt to undermine Claire and Kyle's relationship. Yet, behind his gestures lay a complex web of motives. His unyielding backing inadvertently inflicted wounds on Claire, whose heart ached with every cheer from Victor, a cheer that seemed to celebrate the fracturing of a bond she had believed was unbreakable. Victor's true designs remained shrouded in mystery, leaving everyone to wonder, what was his endgame in this latest act of familial intrigue? While the drama among the couples escalated, another subplot was unfolding in the corridors of passion and power. Sally, emboldened by recent changes in Billy's demeanor, reveled in the newfound closeness they had found. Together, they formed a resolute front against any intrusions, especially those from Phyllis, a perennial force of chaos in Billy's turbulent love life. Sally and Billy had decided that Phyllis's meddling was no longer welcome. They had drawn a firm line, determined to protect the tender bond they were painstakingly rebuilding, even if it meant confronting an adversary who had long relished in stirring discord. Phyllis, ever the tempest, was not one to yield gracefully. Furious at the rejection and the public snub, she vowed to wage a relentless campaign against Sally. In her eyes, this was not merely a personal vendetta, it was a declaration of war in the ruthless arena of love and power. Phyllis's methods were never about the pursuit of true affection. She saw Billy not as a partner, but as an infantile pawn, a child to be controlled and manipulated. Her lack of genuine love for him was palpable, and her disdain for his growing independence only deepened the rift between them. Billy, for his part, could no longer tolerate the condescension. The constant belittling, the sense that he was being treated as someone incapable of making his own decisions, festered within him. The tension between his desire for respect and the reality of Phyllis's intrusive behavior reached a boiling point. In the midst of these interwoven stories, the town of Genoa City buzzed with whispered conversations and overt confrontations. At the heart of it all, Summer's campaign to dismantle Claire and Kyle's relationship had reached a crescendo. Every public appearance, every calculated comment, was met with polarized reactions. Some saw her as a heroine, a woman unafraid to challenge the status quo for the sake of her love. While others viewed her as a saboteur, a merciless force determined to tear apart families without remorse. On one humid summer evening, as twilight descended over the city, Summer found herself in a clandestine meeting with a small group of loyal supporters. The venue was a secluded corner of an upscale lounge, a place where whispered strategies and furtive glances betrayed the gravity of the situation. In hushed tones, she recounted her plans to further erode the bond between Claire and Kyle, outlining her next move with a calm that belied the storm raging within her. "I have fought for every scrap of affection," she declared, her eyes glinting with fierce determination, "and I will not rest until I have what is rightfully mine. It may seem like I play it cool when I've achieved my goals, but that is only because I know the value of patience. And when I lose, I will come back even stronger, more relentless than ever." Her supporters nodded, their expressions a mixture of admiration and trepidation. They knew that Summer's methods, though ruthless, had a magnetic pull, drawing people into her orbit even as they recoiled from the collateral damage. In that same moment, somewhere far from that hidden meeting, Claire and Kyle were grappling with their own demons. Their once unassailable love was now marred by the bitter taste of betrayal. Each cheer from Victor, each whispered rumor of Summer's schemes, was a reminder that even the strongest bonds could be threatened by the relentless march of ambition and desire. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Sally and Billy were fortifying their defenses. After a tense confrontation at a social event where Phyllis had attempted to insinuate herself into their personal space, Sally's hand had instinctively found Billy's. Their eyes met, and in that silent exchange lay a vow, a promise to protect what they had built, no matter the cost. "We will not let her come between us," Billy had said quietly, a note of steely resolve in his voice. Sally, her own resolve mirrored in his, had merely nodded in response. Their alliance, once tentative, now stood as a bulwark against the manipulative forces that sought to undermine their love. Phyllis, on the other hand, was already plotting her next move. Her anger simmered beneath a veneer of cool calculation. Every slight, every rejection from Billy and Sally, was a spark to the tinder of her ambition. "I will not be sidelined," she murmured to herself in the solitude of her opulent study. "I will reclaim what I believe is mine, even if it means dismantling everything in my path." And with that promise, she set in motion a series of maneuvers designed to infiltrate the lives of those who had dared to defy her. Her strategies were as intricate as they were ruthless, each calculated to inflict maximum emotional damage while maintaining a facade of detached superiority. Back in the swirling maelstrom of alliances and betrayals, Victor's support for Summer took on an almost predatory edge. His public declarations, meant to uplift Summer's campaign, inadvertently cast a long shadow over Claire. To Victor, every cheer was a chess move, a subtle signal that the balance of power was shifting in ways that could ultimately benefit his own grand design. Yet, for Claire, each word of praise for Summer was a stab of betrayal, a reminder that in the intricate game of relationships, no one was ever truly on her side. What is he really plotting? Claire wondered bitterly, her heart heavy with the knowledge that the man she once trusted might be orchestrating her undoing. The collision of these disparate yet interconnected lives was inevitable. As Summer's campaign grew more audacious, the opposition against her swelled. Public opinion was split, some admired her ferocity, others condemned her tactics as destructive. Her inner circle, emboldened by her confidence, doubled down on their support, even as whispers of dissent grew louder. In the media, headlines began to reflect the growing polarization. Summer's war on love, heroine or heartbreaker, became a rallying cry for both her devotees and detractors. In a dramatic turn of events, the confrontation between Phyllis and Sally reached a boiling point at a lavish charity gala. The air was thick with tension as Phyllis, unable to contain her fury any longer, approached Sally with a venomous smile. "You think you're so righteous, don't you?" she hissed, her eyes flashing with malice. "You and Billy, you believe you can keep love pure and untainted by truth. But I'm here to show you that love is nothing more than a game I intend to win." Sally, cool and composed despite the onslaught, met Phyllis's gaze with steely resolve. "Love isn't a game, Phyllis. It's something we nurture, something we respect. And your version of it is nothing but a selfish pursuit," she replied calmly, her voice carrying the weight of conviction. The verbal sparring was only a prelude to the more significant battles that lay ahead. For Billy, caught in the crossfire of Phyllis's manipulations and Sally's earnest love, the situation was equally harrowing. The constant barrage of disrespect, the insinuations that he was nothing more than a child to be controlled, gnawed at his sense of self-worth. "I deserve respect," Billy would later confide to a close friend, his voice laced with both anger and sorrow. "I want to be seen as an equal, not as a plaything in someone else's twisted game." His struggle to assert his own identity in the midst of such overwhelming external pressures was a testament to the often painful journey toward maturity and self-respect. As the weeks turned into months, The intertwined destinies of these characters became a microcosm of the eternal struggle between ambition and affection, manipulation and honesty. Summer's quest to tear apart Claire and Kyle's relationship continued unabated, her every move a calculated risk designed to fracture an alliance that many had once believed unassailable. Yet, with every victory she claimed, her own heart grew colder, a chilling reminder that the price of her relentless pursuit was the very love she sought to possess. In the grand tapestry of Genoa City, where every smile hid a secret and every embrace was shadowed by ulterior motives, each character was forced to confront the consequences of their choices. For Victor, it was another move on the chessboard of power. For Sally and Billy, it was the fight for a love that was honest and unmanipulated, and for Phyllis, it was the bitter acceptance that her own capacity for love might be forever marred by her need to dominate and destroy. And so, in the midst of broken hearts and battle lines drawn in the sand, the future remained as uncertain as ever, a future where love, no matter how fiercely fought for, could either mend the shattered pieces of trust or be crushed beneath the weight of relentless ambition and deceit. The war for hearts had only just begun, and in this endless dance of love and loss, every step taken promised either redemption or ruin. The battle lines were drawn, the players set on their precarious paths. Amid the clamor of cheers and the silence of wounded hearts, one truth remained undeniable. In the world of Genoa City, nothing was ever as it seemed, and every love story was a high-stakes gamble where the price of victory was often paid in tears. In the underbelly of Genoa City's darkest corridors, where secrets fester and ambition knows no bounds, an unlikely alliance was taking shape, a partnership forged not of love or loyalty, but of seething hatred and a thirst for revenge. Late one stormy night, in a dilapidated warehouse at the edge of town, Damien and Hulda met under the shroud of darkness, their eyes burning with the intensity of old grudges and new schemes. Damien, whose past had been marred by betrayal and loss, had reached the zenith of his anger. The once troubled soul had transformed into a man hardened by relentless disappointments. Every slight, every hardship, had accumulated into a tidal wave of animosity that now threatened to engulf his very existence. He harbored a deep, unyielding vendetta against Nate and Amy, figures he held responsible for the ruin of his life. In his heart, the fire of retribution had grown so fierce that compromise was no longer an option. Tonight, with his fists clenched and his gaze cold as steel, Damien made a decision. The time had come to settle old scores once and for all. Seated at a rickety metal table in the deserted warehouse, Damien's eyes never wavered from those of Hold'em. The man before him, known in some circles as a master of disguise, a chameleon who could slip between identities with unnerving ease, had earned a reputation for being a man of mystery. Rumors whispered that the Hold'em who now stood beside him might not even be the real Hold'em at all, but rather an impostor using the name as a mask for his own twisted ambitions. And yet, the two shared a mutual understanding. They had both been wronged, both been pushed to the margins, and both were now ready to unleash their wrath. Damien, Hold'em began in a low, gravelly voice, "You and I have both suffered. The scars of the past have never healed, and I see in you a resolve that matches my own. Together, we can bring Nate down. I have my own score to settle, a debt that must be repaid in full." Damien's response was immediate and unyielding. "Nate and Amy," he spat, his voice echoing off the cold, concrete walls, "have taken everything from me. They shattered my world, left me to pick up the pieces. I have nursed my hatred in silence for far too long. Tonight, I pledge that I will stop at nothing until they pay for every moment of pain they inflicted upon me." Hold'em leaned in, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous mixture of ambition and malice. "I propose a plan," he whispered conspiratorially. "We strike swiftly and without mercy. We lure Nate into a trap, a situation where his every ally turns against him. If we can fracture his support system, if we can expose his weaknesses, then defeating him will be inevitable." A slow smile crept over Damien's face, a rare expression that carried the grim promise of retribution. "I have contacts, resources, an intricate network of disgruntled souls who long for justice. Together, we can orchestrate a series of events that will leave Nate isolated, vulnerable, and completely at our mercy." Amy, too, will suffer, for she is as complicit in my downfall as he is. The meeting stretched deep into the night as Damien and Hold'em meticulously outlined their strategy. Their plan was layered and multifaceted, a series of provocations designed to dismantle Nate's carefully constructed life, to expose the cracks in the facade of his influence and power. They would sow discord among his closest allies, spread seeds of doubt among his supporters, and use every tool at their disposal to ensure that Nate would be left with nothing but the bitter taste of defeat. The alliance was as volatile as it was dangerous, built on the premise that vengeance was the only path to redemption. Outside the warehouse, a different kind of fear was slowly taking root in the heart of Victoria. Ever since the news of these sinister machinations began to ripple through Genoa City's grapevine, Victoria's thoughts were consumed with worry, not just for the present, but for a future she feared was rapidly slipping away. As the matriarch who had once been the pillar of stability in her family, Victoria now found herself haunted by a deep, existential terror. The possibility that Cole and Claire, those very people she had nurtured and loved, would one day abandon her, leaving her in a void of loneliness and regret. Victoria paced the length of her grand living room, the polished marble floors echoing the patter of her hurried footsteps. Her mind, usually so composed and calculating, was now a whirlwind of anxiety. "What if one day they decide they no longer need me?" she murmured to herself, glancing at a faded photograph of a happier time, a snapshot of her with Cole and Claire, smiles captured in an era that seemed impossibly distant. The thought was unbearable. In her eyes, the future was a precarious balance between cherished memories and the relentless march of change, and she feared that change above all might strip her of the very essence of her existence. Victoria's worry was not unfounded. The forces of ambition and vengeance that were brewing in the shadows of Genoa City threatened to disturb the delicate equilibrium of relationships she had so painstakingly built. With Nate at the center of a potential maelstrom of betrayal, the lives of many hung in the balance. And for Victoria, whose heart was both tender and resolute, the possibility of being left behind, a relic in a world that had moved on, was a nightmare from which she could not wake. In a moment of introspection, Victoria resolved that she would do everything in her power to maintain the unity of her family. "I must be the glue that holds us together," she vowed quietly, her eyes hardening with determination. Yet even as she set plans in motion to secure her loved ones against the impending storm, the seeds of doubt had already been sown. How could she protect them from the chaos that threatened to engulf them? And, more hauntingly, could she ever fill the void that might be left if Cole and Claire eventually chose a life without her influence? As dawn began to creep over the horizon, the conspiracies and worries of the night gave way to a bleak new reality. In one corner of the city, Damien and Hold'em finalized the last details of their plot, their alliance sealed by a shared resolve to watch Nate and Amy crumble beneath the weight of their own misdeeds. In another, Victoria braced herself against an uncertain future, determined to cling to the remnants of a past that was rapidly fading into memory. In the sprawling tapestry of Genoa City's relentless drama, these disparate threads were destined to converge. Damien's thirst for vengeance and his alliance with the enigmatic Hold'em threatened to ignite a conflagration that could redraw the lines of power and loyalty. Their plan was ruthless and calculated, a deliberate attempt to upend the lives of those who had once basked in the glow of trust and affection. For Nate and Amy, the coming days promised nothing less than a descent into chaos, where every secret would be exploited, every weakness laid bare, and every moment of happiness reduced to ashes. And amid it all, Victoria's quiet despair served as a poignant counterpoint, a reminder that behind every grand scheme and every act of retribution lay a human heart, trembling with the fear of inevitable abandonment. Her worry that Cole and Claire might one day leave her was emblematic of the fragile nature of love in a world where ambition, betrayal, and vengeance often reigned supreme. Thus, as the city stirred with the whispers of impending doom and the first light of day revealed the scars of a tumultuous night, one thing was clear: in Genoa City, nothing was ever as it seemed, and every alliance was fraught with peril. The pact between Damien and Hold'em was not just a conspiracy against Nate, it was a harbinger of the chaos that would soon engulf every corner of their lives. And as each character stood on the precipice of a new chapter, the unyielding truth loomed large. In a world where shadows converge, only those who dare to face the darkness can hope to reclaim the light.